My name is Bryan Sekine, and this is the recap video for the Dragon Staff Fountain Traps workshop. So the first thing we started working on is setting the Dragon Staff on the back wall plane, balancing the center balance point on our thumb, and fanning our fingers open really wide to hold the Dragon Staff here. From this point, we're going to push off from the back wall plane over to our wheel plane. And at this point, we're going to take our other hand and we're going to put our fingers together and point your thumb straight up. And we're going to scoop our thumb inside this negative space we're creating with our arm. And you really want to try to place your thumbnail on the center balance point of the Dragon Staff as it transfers from one side of the body over to the other. So at this point, when my fingers are pointed towards my belly button, the Dragon Staff is actually balanced on my thumb and thumbnail, and I'm going to fan my hand open while it transfers over to this side so that I have enough surface area on the Dragon Staff to lift it up and place it on the top part of my rib cage. So from here, I'm going to push the Dragon Staff down the left side of my body, and it's going to be rolling down my ribs and up the back of my arm. And this is how we generate the rolling momentum for the Dragon Staff, and we push it from one side to the other. The key thing to think about when doing this trick is remembering that you need to create enough negative space for you to be able to put your hand scooping in so your fingers point in the same direction when you cross from one side of the body over to the other. And also keep in mind that the fingers don't scoop in until the Dragon Staff goes from the back wall plane to the wheel plane of the native side of the body. You're going to push from side to side, lift it high up in the air, and then push it down. And try to make sure that when you push down, that the Dragon Staff doesn't go past about the halfway point of your forearm before you get transferred over to the other hand. The next thing we covered in our class is doing top fountain traps. So we're going to place the Dragon Staff on our shoulder, and we're going to set our fingers right on the balance point. And we started off with the Dragon Staff in the wheel plane. And so you put our fingers up, and we're going to practice by bringing the Dragon Staff down a little bit, and we're going to pop it up and over to the other hand, and then down on this side. So you can practice this first, going from side to side, rocking the Dragon Staff hub behind our body, and really making sure that all of the weight transferring on that pivot is on the back of the fingers, right? So it's not on our collarbone, and we want to make sure it doesn't like hit our chin or face at all. So if you find that you're having a hard time getting the balance point to not be on your neck or collarbone, or if it's hitting you in the chin, you can take that center balance point and bring it a little bit further out, so that it's a little bit easier to keep the Dragon Staff in front of your body. And you'll know you're doing this right when you can transfer it to the other hand and lift the Dragon Staff completely off your body, right? So it just touches the fingers, you can lift it straight up and down, it comes back to the side. Now, to get the rolling momentum, what we're going to do is instead of having our forearms and wrists perfectly parallel to the ground, what we're going to do is actually make a shallow V. So our fingers are going to point up on either side, and our elbows are going to point up as well. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to let the Dragon Staff go all the way back to the wheel plane to the point where it's like almost halfway up the forearm. And we're going to push off and then catch it on this side. And when this hub behind the back of the head gets to its highest point, we're going to set it on the base of the skull or the top of your neck. And you're going to let it roll down the back of your neck and roll up your forearm. So the important part about having your elbow higher than your wrist is that when the Dragon Staff is rolling up your forearm, if it's parallel to the ground, the Dragon Staff is going to roll right off the back of your arm and hit the ground behind you. However, if your elbow is higher than your wrist, then when it rolls up your forearm, it's actually going to start to lose momentum. So it's important that by the time it gets halfway up your forearm, you push the Dragon Staff back to the other side of the body. And I tell people to start the push on the center point of their forearm because it's going to take you a little bit of time to go from the back wall plane into the wheel plane. So by the time you are in the wheel plane, the Dragon Staff is already rolled up to the 3/4 point of your elbow, and you don't have very much time to transfer it to the other side. Now, if you get the placement on the back of the head correctly and start pushing it back and forth, the Dragon Staff should naturally start to generate momentum. So I can start from a static position where the Dragon Staff is not rolling at all and transfer it over, land it on the back of my head, and roll it from there. So now the Dragon Staff is rolling, and this is also how we can maintain momentum for the top fountain trap. The next thing in class that we covered is transferring from the top fountain down to the bottom. So to do this, instead of catching the Dragon Staff on the other hand, you're going to simply remove your hand, and then you're going to straighten this arm out, and the arm that is on the native side of the body is going to cross over to the non-native side, and you're going to let the dragon staff roll down that arm and then down your rib cage. And you can pass it down to the trap on the other side of the body. So from this side, you're going to toss it up, straighten your arm out, and then you can either pass it to the fountain on the opposite side of the body, or you can actually catch it on the same side and bring it right back up into another top fountain. Which brings us to the next thing we learned, which is transitioning from bottom fountain traps up to top fountain traps. So to do this, instead of, at the point where the dragon staff is in the wheel plane, instead of scooping your hands behind in that negative space, we're in that same orientation and transferring it over, what we're going to do instead is we're actually going to scoop our fingers in the opposite direction, so our fingers are pointed opposite of one another, and once it transfers past that wheel plane, we're going to simply lift our hand up and then set it on the back of the neck. So from this side, come over here, we're just going to lift it up and set on the back of the neck, and now we're back in top traps. At the very end of the class, we covered transitions from top to bottom by also combining a halo. So if any of you spin contact staff, you can go into the halo position and you can practice by holding it, the balance point on one side of the shoulder, and you can pass it behind your head where the balance point is at the base of your skull, or aligned with your spine, and it's going to pass over to the other shoulder. Once you feel comfortable doing this pass back and forth, you can let it fall down one more time to where it tucks into the armpit, and wherever it lands, typically the balance point is in your palm if you're doing it correctly. So wherever that lands, you can also toss it from there. So you go over to this side and pass it here. The key to landing the halo is it's all in the rotation of your shoulders. So if I stand straight and try to do that, it's just going to fall over the back. Right? So really what I'm doing is rotating my shoulders in one direction, whichever direction is holding the staff, and I'm going to toss it over. When it reaches the back of my head, I'm going to rotate my shoulders over here, and it's going to fall back down on this side. So we're going to take the contact staff halo, and we're going to combine that with the top trap fountains to get the effect of tossing it behind our head and down into a trap. And you can either do that trick catching it with the bottom trap arm, or you can catch it with the same arm that you tossed it with to pull it back up into a top fountain. And then lastly, to create the full fountain effect, what we're going to do is we start off by doing the bottom fountain traps, and instead of pushing horizontally from side to side, we're actually going to lift up, and you're going to lean your body back just a little bit to lift the dragon staff up and across, kind of where your sternum starts. So this can also be done as a trap. So you can go back and forth, break it over here, break it over there. And then the same thing can happen on the bottom side. So instead of leaning back, we can then lean forward, and we can go into our fountains this way, and then push down, pendulum up. So you can push it down over here. Then we can combine the two. So you can lean back, push it up, lean forward, go down, lean back, push it up, forward and down. You can break it one direction, go back the other way. The important part about doing that top fountain transfer is that your elbows are going to create this M shape. So this is the hard part, because the negative space to transfer from one hand to the other happens right here. So your hands actually do have to cross at this point. And let's see. Did we do anything else? Is that all of it? Okay.
Yeah,
continuous?
Yeah, just do like 10 seconds.
Sure. So you can go up, down.
So that's the full fountain, right?
So this is officially the full fountain. Everything else we've covered so far is called a fountain trap or a fountain break.
Cool. Is there a combination with that, with like the top? Like a combination of the full fountain to the top, like a top full fountain versus bottom full fountain, or?
You know, I'm not sure. I haven't really played with very many variations of just the fountain itself. Another thing that we did cover is getting kind of like fun and dancey with it. So you can do fountains in one direction and lean the same direction that the fountain is on. So you can bend the right leg when it's on the right, bend the left leg when it's on the left. Or you can switch it up and bend on one side and then bend on the opposite side.
Touching your head like a...
Ah, yes, thank you. Another thing that I like to do is when I come up to a top fountain, you can touch the back of your head, transfer over, touch the back of your head. Another really good one is transferring it from top to bottom. So if you're doing like top fountains here, you know, you can have your hands up and everyone thinks you have to use both hands to do it. and then you can transfer from top to bottom by putting your hand behind your head, catching on the same arm. Getting into fountains, you can do like one-armed rolls. So at any point when the dragon staff is rolling up your forearm, you can, when it rolls up the forearm,
You can basically trap it into
well, let's see. Here's a good one. If you guys know the cheating death, right, you can do a cheating death behind you, and instead of letting it roll down the arm this way, you can kind of do like a half cheating death, or what we call like an interrupt. Place the fingertips of the hand you want to do the top fountain right on that shoulder, and instead of letting it roll down the arm, you're going to catch it on this side and bring it into the top. Right? So that's fun. So like all together, that looks like cheating death, over, top fountain, trap. Good luck.
Sweet. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you guys.
Yay.